Hey guys, this is Smithy. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about eyeshadow palettes. And you guys know how much I love my eyeshadow palettes. I absolutely love talking about it. Let it be neutral, let it be colorful, let it be multi-chromes, let it be just mattes. I just love them all, and today we're going to talk about my top 10 office palettes. I do have a full-time job which is from 9 to 5, and I go into like corporate office. So I love to wear eyeshadow. That's not news to anybody, but I love to wear it a little bit more on the mellow side, a little bit more on the neutral side, but not saying that all of this is like neutral palettes or boring palettes or anything like that. I feel like we have some interesting choices. If you want your neutral boring palettes, that's also there. But if you want like multi-chromy palettes, that's also there, but it's all toned down. I felt like this would be super useful, especially if you're starting in makeup or if you're looking for palettes which is work appropriate. I feel like this is right up your alley. So if you're ready, let's begin. The first palette that I'm going to talk about, I felt like that this is the most used palette that I have worn to office this year, 2024, because this landed in my collection early 2024, and I'm going to talk about my Unearthly Cosmetics Sorcerous Smoke palette. This, I feel like you can get some elegant everyday looks, but also colorful but muted looks at the same time. This, I feel like, is the work appropriate palette, like the neutral glam palette or an everyday palette. You just name it and it's there. Like if you wear any of these shimmers, it's super glam, but you can tap it like very elegantly on your eyes, like very lightly, and it will just give you a sparkle and shine. I love this palette. You can go warm tone, you can go neutral tones. You also have pops of greens. This vervain shade, it's so pretty. And I often wear 2 shadow looks to office, maximum 3, I would say. Like these two, you can just bunch these 2 looks and it can be a look for office. I generally avoid these 2, but rest everything I feel like is so work appropriate. I really love this palette. The quality is A++. I'm very happy about the Sorcerous Smoke palette. This is another palette. Again, a very well used palette in my collection. I felt like I used this palette the most in 2023 because this came in last year in my collection and I have non-stop use. I still use it. These, by the way, all these top 10 palettes I'm talking about stays right up on my vanity. Like it just doesn't leave just because I wear these palettes the most. So the next palette, I cannot recommend this enough, and this is the Patrick Ta, the Rose Dimension 2 palette. I love this palette. I feel like this is so pretty, especially if you are more of like a cooler or a neutral undertone, and if you like rosy eyeshadows. This palette, you cannot go wrong with this. This is such an amazing palette. The mattes blend beautifully. The shimmers look so elegant on your eyes. I really love it. If I have like a weekend trip to just go, I generally carry this and I love the looks that I create. I don't think that I've ever created a look with this palette that I've not liked. I really love it. I would highly recommend it. And if you can get it on a sale, oh my, you will love it. The next palette, it's definitely old palette. This video is going to be all over the place. We have some newer palettes, we have some older palettes, we have some indie palettes, we have some high-end palettes. This palette, the next palette that I'm going to talk about, is an older palette in my collection, but I still use it because it works so beautifully. If you love a good, concise, like smaller size palette, but it just gives you all, I feel like you should go with Supreme Nudes palette from Artist Couture. I know this is older generation. I don't know. This came out in what, 2021? 2022? I don't even know when this came out, but I still use it till date. It works so beautifully, you guys. I feel like the shimmers have gone a little bit more on the lower quality side just because now we are into like sparkly shimmers, like multi-chromes and stuff. But the mattes, it's so pretty. Definitely pulls a little bit more on the warmer tone side and neutral tone side. I love these like peachy tones. The warmer tones are amazing. This green it's a wearable green shade and I love it. I absolutely love this palette. For office, this is absolutely appropriate. I love, love, love. Love the packaging too, how slim it is, how concise it is. This definitely stays right up in center on my vanity. Obviously, all of them do. But this is such a special palette. You will definitely not be disappointed if you've not tried Artist Couture. Start with this palette. I feel like this palette is the best palette that they have in their line altogether. I really love it. Really, really love it. Let's talk about a neutral eyeshadow palette. Especially if you are on a lighter and a fairer skin tone side, and if you do not have like that warm undertone, I would highly recommend this palette to you. And I'm talking about the Natasha Denona I Nude eyeshadow palette. I do have a code with Natasha Denona at Smithy Sony to save you 15% off on their website. This palette is truly beautiful. We can definitely swap these shadows out. So the middle shade that you see is not from this palette. I have that shade in some other palette, especially when I was traveling. I was taking this along with me. This palette is such a beautiful tone palette. I love the addition of these mattes because I feel like with those mattes, I can make this palette work. I feel like this shade is a beautiful inner corner shade. I feel like the stone shade and mesh is very similar on me, and it is very light on me. So I could definitely do without one of the shades for sure. I would have definitely preferred like another shade. I love the wet shimmers that they introduced, the sheen shade, the Delilah shade, and the impactful shimmers of the palette like Filigree, Ella, Muse. So stunning on the eyes, so stunning. I absolutely love this palette. Would again recommend if you are more of like a fair, light, medium skin tone. You would absolutely love it, especially if you love neutral undertones. This is a beautiful one to have. Okay, oldie but a goodie, but a luxury one. I am going to talk about Pat McGrath palette, and I feel like the Bronze Seduction palette from Pat McGrath is definitely work appropriate. This is such a beautiful bronzy tone eyeshadow palette, but with special shimmers. I love to wear like one of these mattes in my crease and deepen out my outer corners and any of the shimmers on the eyelid, and that's a beautiful look by itself. I love that you can go so many directions. I feel like I definitely, for work, out of these shimmers, I avoid this one because this is the most sparkliest one, I would say. I feel like on my undertone of the skin, I can definitely pull this off on like a matte, and I'll be absolutely happy with it. I avoid reds in office, and this one, it looks like a white. It's like a pure gold shade. Can you see? And so sparkly. If you want a shimmer with a shebang on your eyes, this is so good to have, and the mattes blend so beautifully. So beautifully, I would highly, highly, highly recommend. Okay, we've talked about neutral palettes, we've talked about bronzy palette, warm tone palette. Now let's talk about some cool tone palette. The most used cool tone palette for office for me is by far the Pretty Grunge palette from Huda Beauty. I feel like I get such beautiful looks out of this palette, especially when I go for office. I really, really love it. I love to wear like these cool tones on my eyes when I'm going for office, and even like this warmer tone side mattes. The mattes might look like a lot lighter, but it shows up on my skin. When I say it just looks so special on the eyes. It's really, really pretty. I feel like you'll not be disappointed absolutely if you use this palette in office. You have some like special like glimmery shades too, but you have elegant like a toned down shimmer also in this palette. I can wear these shadows anywhere, okay? I really, really love this palette, especially if you have more of like a cooler undertone. I feel like you'll absolutely love this. Okay, now let's talk about an affordable palette, which I feel like I have this right center in my vanity just because with whatever mattes I use, if I get one of these shimmers, and I'm talking about the Colourpop That's Taupe palette, I actually have mixed a little bit of That's Taupe as well as Going Coconuts in this palette. So this is like a custom palette that I have with me. And these shimmers are like my favorite shimmers to have. You can see like this Super Shock formula that is here. I love to just tap one of these shimmers. This is more cool tone, this is more like neutral tone. One of the shimmers on the eyelid, and whatever matte you're using, it looks so elegant, so beautiful. I cannot recommend this enough. This is beautiful, absolutely stunning. Very affordable palette, but such an impactful palette to have in your collection. You go either way. If you love more cool tones, go with that Taupe. If you're more of like a lighter and you like a neutral undertone, going coconuts is a great option to have. Okay, now let's talk about a palette which can give you variety. If you love neutrals, peachy, pinky tone looks, you would absolutely love this one. This is Nude Prism palette from Lunar Beauty. The shimmers just steal the show for me, okay? Just steal the show for me. But also, if you are more of a deeper skin type, I feel like this is not the palette for you. I feel like all of these shades on the top row for me acts like a transitioning shade. I can hardly wear this shade in my crease and it shows up, but rest everything works like a transitioning shade, like a blending shade to me. But the shimmers, they are so pretty, so elegant. They're not multi-chromy or shifty by any means, but they look so elegant on the eyes. And of course, the deeper shades definitely show up on me, so I'm not mad at it at all. I can definitely do warmer tone looks, I can definitely do pinky looks, and I can also do like peachy, everyday neutral looks too. I really love this palette. A little bit restricted on the cool tone looks, but otherwise I feel like this is a great palette to have in your collection. Okay, 2 more palettes to go. Let's talk about an all matte palette. If you want an all matte palette to just do it, give me some brown tones, Smithy. Just neutral, warm, chocolatey brown tones every day of my life. If you are that person, this palette is right up your alley. Makeup by Mario's Master Mattes palette, the original one. This is such a stunning palette. I have these mattes on my eyes today. By the way, I've recorded this video. I don't know if it's up or not. The mattes that I've used for this eye look is from this palette. You can never go wrong with this palette. I feel like they blend beautifully. They build beautifully. And that's what I love about Makeup by Mario palettes. I really recommend these palettes. It's small but mighty. You can do so much with this. Because Mario has designed this palette based on the skin tones, I feel like this can just work on anybody and everybody, and I love it. Absolutely love it. I can definitely wear from the lighter tone shade to the most deeper shade in this palette, and I can be very happy about it. Now last, certainly not the least, let's talk about a colorful palette, okay? Now this, if I'm going with colors on my eyes, I'm more comfortable with like peachy tone, pinky tone, purpley tones, and like a grungy greens, okay? That's my color palette if I'm going for office. And I feel like this palette gives it all to us with multi-chromy formulas, but elegant multi-chromes. So these are not like chunky shimmers by any means. They're very smooth on the eyes and they just last on me for the entire day, and they look so elegant on my eyes. I really have worn this palette to office several times because when I think of an office palette, this doesn't like jump out to me, but I have worn this to office so many times and I've gotten so many compliments. You can definitely wear this palette to office and not feel out of place. And I'm talking about the Glaminatrix Rich Romantic palette. Now when you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Yes, you have those pops of colors, but the shimmers, yes, it's multi-chromy, but they're so elegant shimmers on the eyes. It's so pretty. Let me swatch a few shades so that you can see what I'm talking about, because these are all like such amazing shades to have in the collection. I'm swatching the shimmer shades of the palette because, you know, the mattes of Glaminatrix is amazing anyways. But I just wanted to show the shimmers so that you're not steered otherwise, and you don't think of it like a chunkier formula, because these are some beautiful shifty but smooth shades. Like look at those. It's so shifty, it's so beautiful on the eyes. I love these formulas from Glaminatrix Cosmetics. They're one of my favorite indie brands to have in my collection, and I cannot recommend this enough. I do have a code with Glaminatrix Cosmetics. It's SMITHYSONY to save you 10% off. Let me also swatch a few mattes so that you know that you can go so many different directions with these mattes too. Can you see how smooth these are? It's such a beautiful, colorful, but wearable palette in my opinion. I love this palette and I definitely wanted to recommend you guys with this palette, especially if you are looking for a work appropriate colorful palette. This is a great one to have in your collection, especially if you are in Australia, and if you've not tried this, try this brand, you will not be disappointed. So those were my top 10 palettes for office, which are work appropriate, which are everyday appropriate. I really love these palettes. All of these palettes are very special to me. I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have any palette in your collection that you wear to work every day and you absolutely love it, do let me know in the comment section below. I would love to discover it. But that's all for today, guys. If you did like this video, you know what to do. Do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell so that you're notified every time that I post next. I generally upload 3 videos every single week, every Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at 9 AM Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.